Hi, happy Wednesday morning at ACPE. I'm super excited to be here on behalf of the board to say good morning and to welcome you to this session. We are here today with David Klusman and Jason Kinbride from Oregon City School District and Jonathan Bowen from ClearTouch. And they are going to talk about moving classrooms into the 21st century. As we get started today, you will notice that on the right-hand side, if this perhaps is your first session of the conference, you can chat and ask questions. I'll be watching the chat and the Q&A tabs both today, so that when we have questions, we'll try to get those to the speakers in real time. And if you have any questions about AirMeet or the software or any issues that you're having, you can drop those in there as well, and I'll try to keep an eye on it and be behind the scenes. So with that, I'm going to hide myself and turn this over to David and Jason and Jonathan. Thank you.
David, I think you're muted.
David, I'm just going to ask you to unmute. Yep, there you go.
It's a darn button. Welcome everybody. Happy to be here for ACPE, and let's get started. Jason and I are going to lead us off into here, and I'm assuming you guys can see the screen and the presentation, and here we go. So we've started this process of moving classrooms into the 21st century back in 2016. We started with the possibility of redesigning our middle school models. Students were showing up at the high school level with completely different middle school experiences, and the middle schools weren't aligned. This started a conversation about what each middle school was doing, how they were preparing students for high school, and a team of people assembled, and they started asking what a middle school classroom should look like, what concepts they wanted to incorporate, and into those instructional practices, and then how we would design a building to accommodate and support those decisions. Some of these things required a vocabulary change, and much more of it required changing our instructional practice. And these discussions were a basis for our 2018 School Bond Initiative. There was a great willingness to look at technologies that would enable the instructor to be mobile, to get away from the front of the room lecture style, encourage collaboration, project-based learning, and flexible layouts of our classrooms. And as part of our process in 2017, we launched on a technology investigation for tools that supported what our teaching and learning department were looking to do. Some of those requirements were that it needed to be flexible, possibly a wireless option, provide options for students with disabilities, and staff using multiple types of equipment, and be managed through a centralized platform. Let's see here, let's go over here. As we look through some of these sorts of things, we looked at what is a learning environment. That's one of our vocabulary changes, and how is technology leveraged in those spaces. And learning environments are flexible and collaborative instructional spaces that encourage a new way of delivering instruction. It's like a classroom, but we can't call it a classroom anymore. As part of our process, we looked at interactive projectors, non-interactive TVs and displays, traditional laser, and interactive panels, as well as classroom audio controls. We started a process for evaluating projectors from BenQ, Epson, Casio, Mimeo, and then interactive panels from SmartTech, Promethean, Mimeo, Sharp, BenQ, Aver, Newline, ViewSonic, CleverTouch, ClearTouch, and InFocus. During our time, we found that we were getting complaints from staff who had these new brighter projectors. They were experiencing ocular migraines. They were experiencing eye fatigue, and other conditions that I didn't know existed at the time. And the first fix was to ceiling mount our projectors, but that didn't make the conditions go away for our staff, and in some cases it made it worse by putting the projector at eye level of the instructor. So then we moved into ultra short throw projectors as an option to get away from the throw distances required by a traditional projector. If we go over here, we also were looking at student one-to-one as an option, and this was pre-COVID. And at the time, we weren't looking at doing a one-to-one option just due to cost. However, through the CARES Act and distance learning, that really pushed one-to-one into the forefront as an option moving forward. When we started getting some IFPs, we offered them to staff, and initially they didn't like them. The screen size was smaller than their projector, and they were concerned that students couldn't see them in the back of the room. It was ironic because they were comparing them to a 4:3 ratio of an old smartboard, and they're pull-down screens that were horizontally smaller than the panels that we were asking them to test. After a while, though, they started to realize all the advantages that a panel offered. They were brighter, they were bigger, they weren't affected as much by ambient light in the classrooms. They had better speakers. They could use it as a whiteboard. They could use it as a presentation source. Students could cast to it, teachers could cast to it, and teachers really started to get excited about the possibilities that we had there. And we looked at, here's one of our middle school neighborhoods. And you can see here that we've got some village or neighborhood type stuff that they wanted to integrate into the designs. And
David, can we back up just for a second?
Sure.
I think one of the biggest factors of going with a panel or an IFP versus going with a projector was if we were going to go one-to-one and we're going to do wireless sharing, if Johnny and Billy had to share a Chromebook, it was going to make things difficult. And I think having the teacher have the ability to walk up and down each aisle of the classroom really gave them a sense of community, I think, more than this is my teacher and I'm just staring at him or her teaching, where we can now collaborate. And I think a big part of that was why we went with panels versus projectors.
Yes. So as we looked at projectors, it was clear that products fell between two extremes. One, vendors with an ecosystem where you were locked into a complete hardware and software platform. And then the other extreme would be panels that met the requirement of interactive, but nothing else could they do. So we narrowed our process down to 3 finalists, and those were ClearTouch, CleverTouch, and BenQ. And in going around and around with all 3, we selected ClearTouch as our option. And then after we did that, we introduced that to our middle school design process folks, and they were really excited to have an IFP that accomplished a lot of those needs that we established early on, and how that the panel could fit into that instructional model. So here we've got the neighborhoods, and both the panels could be mounted on a wall as well as on a mobile cart, and that allowed the teacher to be mobile in their teaching with their laptop and all these other sorts of things.
So in one of our middle schools, we're choosing to do 2 clear touch panels per classroom, one on the teaching wall, one on the back wall, and this will give the students the ability to collaborate in groups on the front panel as well as on the back panel, and then share with each other everything that is being done in the lesson that's being learned that day.
Yes, so let's go to the next slide here. This is a rendering of how one of our middle schools will be set up. This is our open collaboration area where you can see over on the far right side, there's a instructional studio with a panel on the wall. What's not shown in this particular slide is the mobile panel on a cart that they can wheel around to different parts of the classroom or this collaboration area and do their present from it. But very open, flexible seating that can be reconfigured as needed. The tables are on wheels, so everything moves. The storage is on wheels, so it can move as needed, create an ad hoc workspace, those sorts of things. Another rendering, this is currently in construction. All these are currently in construction, but this is our cafeteria and then some of the office areas off to the right. Jason, you want to talk about this area?
So this is looks to be Ogden. On the left-hand side, you've got a classroom that's got some windows so you can kind of see what's going on in the collaborative space. On the right-hand side is a different classroom that's being utilized with a I don't know what you call those doors, but anyway, it's a big glass accordion door that can be open or closed, so that way everyone is able to go into the collaboration area and or go into the classroom. So the great thing about this setup here, one of my favorite things, is there's no limitations, right? I mean, we can have in the enterprise arena, we call them breakout rooms. So you could come out of the classroom, go into the collaboration area, and move a table, group them together, create 5 or 6 seats, and have a chat, maybe a team chat. In the very back, just behind the pole, you see a panel there. That's in a staff collaboration room where the staff can come together and also go in there in a very small collaborative area, and they can also chat on 43-inch clear touch panels.
All right, so our standard classrooms in both the elementary and the middle schools, this is how we've had it for over, I'd say, 15 years. A primary teaching wall with a whiteboard, a document camera, and a laptop on a desk, a projector, bulletin boards, student seating is set up, and here's a picture that should be very familiar for a lot of elementaries, at least for us. But you can see whiteboard, the projector displays onto the whiteboard, and then they can interact with the whiteboard or their presentation using a marker pen. The teacher is tethered to their teaching station, and lots of tack space for folks.
It's a very nice classroom.
Another example of a one of our elementary classrooms where, again, presenting on a whiteboard to provide the interaction and document camera. And then our last standard classroom. Here's our 4x3 smartboards. Yes, some of them still work, and most of them are using them as a screen. But you can see that in this case, they're not using it for interaction. The bottom right-hand corner of the screen that's where the USB cable connects. So they're just using it as a display. They're not using it for any sort of interaction. And markers do not wipe off very well on that screen.
So
let's talk a little about
permanent.
No, permanent markers don't work so well.
Oh,
so you want to talk a little bit about primary teaching walls and learning environments versus a classroom?
So your primary teaching wall, obviously it's the wall that we're looking at while we're learning. The great thing about calling it a teaching wall is that it gives us a point in the classroom to focus. And in Ogden, at Ogden, for instance, we've got the teaching wall, and then we've got our secondary panel where we can have half the class look at this panel, half the class look at the other panel. At Gardner, it's a single panel, but the concept in both schools is the exact same, where students, again, can be up and mobile, the teacher's up and mobile, and nobody is sitting in a traditional desk looking at a 4x3 smartboard that does nothing with markers that are terrible. What this classroom is doing is it's encouraging everyone to get together face to face, work with one another as a team instead of sitting in a desk at a desk in a single chair, not able to move without making the loud screeching noise that you can hear from a mile away. And I think that this is the wave of the future.
So for those who are technological folks or hardware people, this is what we standardized on in our learning environments. A clear touch 75-inch TV or interactive panel, a peerless height adjustable stand. If the panel needed to be mobile, we used the peerless height adjustable rolling cart. Classroom audio was provided or is being provided by Front Row in their Easy Room. And then we've got access points
And his audio just cut out.
the printers and plotters.
David, we can.
Is it back now?
Yep, you're good now.
Okay, my phone rang and cut my audio. I apologize. I love it. Okay. Jason, do you want to take over on these guys here, the new classroom setups?
So this is an AISP room with our height adjustable stand on a ClearTouch 6075K. This particular stand will take the panel all the way down to within 1.5 inches of the ground. And right now you can see it's at full height. So if there's kids with disabilities and or in wheelchairs, they can go up to that panel. They can touch it with anything, a tennis ball, a pen. I don't think there's anything you can't touch it with. And it will write on the panel. Having the panel appear on the teaching wall, again, gives the teacher the ability to be up there at her desk or in the back, streaming wirelessly. On the right-hand side, we've got the whiteboard for anybody who is scared of the ClearTouch panel.
All right. Did you want to add something?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
Next.
We implemented LED lighting in these spaces. Fancy little drop downs. All right, this is our, go ahead.
I was going to say this is more of what a traditional classroom is going to look like at Ogden, where you've got the panel up front. If I would have zoomed in on the picture I took, you'd see that you've got the front row stuff on the right-hand side. You have front row just under the panel. We have speakers, the IR speakers on the left and right-hand side of the classrooms. Which gives the teacher the ability to walk around the entire classroom and talk, as well as the kids. With their student mic, they can get up and talk or walk and talk. And a fire strobe. So again, another traditional setup at Ogden. And on the left-hand side, we've got our Bluetooth receiver, and we've got the front row touch panel, which will change inputs, turn the panel on and off, as well as switch inputs.
Yes. And Jason mentioned that these are traditional classrooms. At Ogden, we were remodeling. We weren't designing a brand new school. So these are going into part of the areas that were just kind of refaced and not completely reconstructed. In the instructional areas are currently being built and brought online in the next couple months for opening in the fall. And those are in different stages of building right now. So we don't have any finished classrooms in those areas.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
So a lot of the renderings and the open concept, and that's all in the instructional wings and neighborhoods, and these are kind of elective classes. And this is one of our CTE spaces, also an elective area in the existing part of the building. So it was kind of refaced and upgraded. But again, this is actually the wood shop, which is getting repurposed a little bit. And our CTE space, and our CTE space is behind there, which is not finished yet, but there's going to be 5 panels in that room. The teacher also runs an after-school gaming club, and they were excited to have Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo going in multiple screens in that room. Anything else on those guys?
No.
Okay. Questions so far?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Jonathan, you're up.
Thanks, David. Great stuff. Appreciate you sharing all that. That was really good information to see what you guys have done. Love how you're going with the whole open classroom and very collaborative spaces. So good stuff there. I want to take a few minutes for everybody on the call and try to really walk you through, and I'm not sure this thing is working 100% because I did not see it come up and share my window. Hang on just a minute. Get it in there for you. Sometimes it comes in and there it goes. Okay, you should see my screen now. If you don't, give me a holler. I want to take you through what we do at ClearTouch, because one of the great things about yesterday is we had a lot of people popping by our booth, jumping in the tables, and some of those folks were current customers like David and Jason who know us, but others were like, I've never heard of you guys. What do you do? So I just want to take you through that really fast so you kind of know who we are and what we specialize in as you have needs for technology going forward. So the primary thing that we've been known for is interactive flat panels. You heard David and Jason kind of mention that they went through quite the shootout over a number of years, tested some panels, bought some other panels, etc., and in the end really settled on our solution. And we not only appreciate the business, which everybody does, we really try to partner with folks. So I would say that David and Jason and I have been to way too many lunches together, spent a lot of time together, but that's really to make sure they're well supported and that the hardware does what it's supposed to do. Sometimes that's the hardest part of selling hardware, right? You advertise things, but you have to make them work. So we have some unique things that I'll tell you about in just a few minutes, but I want to highlight there's kind of two series of panels. The one that Jason and David are using there at Oregon City is what we call that K series. Now you may notice there's a K plus series there. Don't let that throw you. That's just the newest version of that. But that K series is interactive infrared touch, whereas the XE series that you see there, and they actually have some of those in 43 and 55 inch, that's actually a capacitive touch. So for us in the education space, especially K-12, the XE series exists to do really table mode panels. So if you say, hey, I've got a very collaborative space, and in this space, I'd love to be able to flip that thing over, get multiple kids, students around that, the teacher helping them out. Not only can this fold down electrically, so this is an electrically controlled stand that can roll anywhere, but we also have software that can split into 4 zones. These are independent learning zones. You got 20 points of touch on the whole panel. So you can easily have 8, 10 students at a time. And what's interesting about this, David mentioned early on in his presentation, if you were here, he mentioned about screen size and how teachers tend to view screen size and think, oh, there's not enough space. It has to be really big. And that can be true when you're mounted on a wall. This picture is of a 65 inch. And I can tell you that with a 65 inch, done a lot of trade shows and a lot of customer meetings where we have 4 to 6, even sometimes 8 adults around this thing. So 65 is quite large for that. But now we support that in 43 inch for the small fries. So if you have an early learning program and you need something small, short, in table mode that they can easily reach, we can do that on a shortened version. Or if you need something more for regular elementary, middle school, high school, this works great in table mode. That's what that that XE series is for. So
can you stand on the 43?
You can. I'm not going to. So Jason tried to surf on one time at a trade show. Unfortunately, we had the casters locked, so it didn't pop out from under him. But I don't suggest you do what the kids at the Milton Freewater Public Library do, which is crawl on top and dance around. They're young kids. They come in for the reading program, and so we just don't want you doing that for safety reasons, right? I mentioned early on there's a K plus series, so I want to tell you really quick what that is. So if you remember, that's the infrared series. And what the K Plus boasts is the fastest chipset and the latest Android processor right now in the world that's shipping. In other words, if you're buying today or in the next few months, this is brand new architecture, not 2-year-old architecture. And I'm bringing that up for a reason for everybody who's technical on here, which is probably just about everybody, because you're probably hearing about the chipset shortage of 2021, just like I am. So we got ahead of this chipset shortage and started building late last year and redesigning. And so we've just got kind of the latest, greatest here so you can be in the new world and in the 21st century going forward. Those are shipping now. So really great, terribly responsive. I mean, just like it'll blow your mind how non-laggy. If you've been in front of panels before, sometimes you use them and they lag a little bit. Your finger is in front of the line. You can see one of these anytime and see that it's not lagging like that. So it's real lag-free performance.
Is it better than ViewSonic?
I honestly, I don't know. I tend to not try to compete. I tend to just run with what I have that's the best. We did something else here that a lot of brands still haven't caught up with. So we basically bonded the front glass that you touch to the LED. And that really reduces things like parallax and ghosting that when you're close, from 10 feet away, you won't see that. But when you're up touching the panel, it kind of throws some people off. I'm seeing a ghosted or a double image. We really cut down on that. It also reduces the thickness of the glass, which reduces the overall weight, still handles 250 PSI. So, a kid gets mad about a math problem. If he breaks that glass, he probably broke his knuckles also. So it's very, very solid stuff. And we also put a low friction film on this glass. So almost everybody now puts a glare resistant film, which is great because you can put them in these bright lit open places where you have the window blinds open, and it's great. But we go an extra layer on top of that, and we put low friction. And what that does for you guys is that's a lot less fingerprints and a lot less cleaning. The reason for that is if you don't put the low friction on there, then as a person drags their finger over, which most kids will touch these with their fingers unless you tell them they can't for COVID reasons, it leaves behind, just because of the friction, it sort of sands the end of their finger a little bit. It also can burn the finger of a regular user, like a teacher who may be highly instructive, like a math teacher. Certainly you can use the pens that come with our panel, and some teachers do that, but a lot of people just love using their finger. It's easy. You can flip your hand over and erase. So that low friction just keeps things a lot cleaner for you and keeps you from getting finger burn. Another thing we did, and we're just now kind of outpacing some of the things that Jason and David did, which go back a good 3 years or so in architecture, but we built 2.1 audio into this with a 15-watt subwoofer. Now, don't be afraid that you're going to thump so hard in one classroom, the next classroom is going to be frustrated. This is room-filling audio with a limiter on the subwoofer, so if some smart aleck kid or a cool teacher turns it up to 100%, you're not booming things out, but you can certainly fill and really feel the bass response. So it's really great. It's you'll see there are some slots on that picture. That's front porting out of those front speakers, and so it really is rich. You can take ours up to 100%, by the way, and get no distortion and no clipping. And if you've ever kind of tested panels against each other, you'll find there are not a lot of them that can do that. They're a little more cheaply made. Another thing we did was improve the connectivity. So for those of you who love to say wall mount, or you like having that RJ45 drop, there you go. We've got a dual gigabit switch 2-port in there, so you can come out of there after dropping into the panel and support anything else. That could be an IPPTZ camera or any other devices, your own computer, etc. We have an integrated Wi-Fi that very soon will support Wi-Fi 6. We've got a USB Type-C there for one cable to do audio, video, touch, and charge up to a 90-watt laptop. And then we build in Collage wireless screen sharing. So right now, quick word, just about everybody's advertising screen sharing. We're one of the few companies that actually build it in with our own native application that is at the firmware and chipset level. And that's one of the things I think that David and Jason and the teachers were using early on in testing and going, wow, this just works out of the box. So we can hop across VLANs. We can support all devices. It mirrors up to 6 devices today, and in about a month and a half, an update will come out to the software. We're continually innovating, and that'll take you to 9 devices simultaneously right there on one screen. So a teacher can really start reaching into the classroom and getting more kids to respond. So that's that Collage screen sharing. Just so you know, we support pretty much every device there, connecting back, and also give you touch control over your network with your Mac and Windows computers. Of course, those 6 screens today. I like to call it one-click sharing too. And the reason I say that is because now you've got the ability where a teacher doesn't have to minimize everything and launch this application. It's already residing in the background. So a teacher could have a computer attached, could be teaching from the internal computer, could be running from the document camera, anything they want to do. That teacher with the gaming systems could have the Xbox running, and Jason could say, hey, I want to share what I did in this Minecraft coding or whatever, and pull up his laptop and immediately share without having to change this, change that, touch this, touch that. Really easy interface. Another thing we do, and this is especially for the tech office, but it's also for the front office. We build in something called Command, which is a remote management function. So most of you who are getting into panels are saying, this is great, but do I have to hang it on the wall and then go around and spend like 30 minutes in front of each panel to set it up? And the answer is no, you don't. Now you can just go hook it to Wi-Fi or to your Ethernet, hook back to Command, which is cloud-based. Once you've done that, you can start pushing your images, your APKs out. You can do software system updates. You can control your settings. You can change settings. You can even password protect your settings so your teachers can't get in and change those. But you also can start bringing the front office in now. So many times you probably have people that want to send out basic announcements and other things like that. This has video, image, and text announcements built in. And on top of that, it can even add IP-based videos. So if you're a school district and you say, hey, we're doing some IP-based video, we're encoding this, kind of pushing it up to a server somewhere, there's a decoder built right in here to command. So if you like the CNN IP feed, or you like to put something from the district office feed or the morning announcements, all of that is doable, as well as emergency messaging as well. So the front office can kind of push the big red button. So right now we're working on the integration so that your access systems will control that. Today, that could be activated
Jonathan, I
from
have a
any
question.
device that's plugged in. Yeah, go ahead.
If I need to send an emergency message, is there how much of a delay is there for me typing, clicking send, and Johnny down the hall seeing it?
About a second. Yeah,
Too long.
Okay. Yeah, I know, but I think David and I have talked about his network a couple times, so I'm available for network consultation on the side. I'm kidding.
Yeah, his network's terrible.
It's milliseconds, right? It's fairly instantaneous when you're doing that messaging.
Perfect.
Another thing we build in, and this is, I want you to understand something. All of our software is included with the panel. No subscription charges, no extra fees, no additional stuff to catch you at year 3 or 5 or 7. We built the Snowflake software in. It's really a learning system, an ecosystem. You get 5 teacher accounts per panel. These are perpetually licensed. So again, you don't have to come back and pay me in year 3 or 5 for these. Some of the benefits, there are a lot, but I'm just going to touch on a few things here so you get a feel for what it's doing. One is ad-free YouTube videos. So YouTube is probably the #1 web application used in the classroom today. It's not Kahoot or ClassDojo or ClassLink or something else. It's content from YouTube. And the problem with YouTube is not the content, it's the interface. When you go to youtube.com, you get ads, you get the NFL and Nissan trucks and all this stuff that you don't want in a classroom. So we actually let you work inside the portal there, and you get around all that. You can safe search YouTube. So it works with your existing filters, but also keeps bad stuff from just popping up where it shouldn't pop up, distracting things from being there, and you can play those back. We also build in multiple web browsers right into the whiteboard. So I've been in tons of classroom and seen 27 browsers open, and a teacher wondering why, when she's got her laptop connected to my panel, it's running so slow. Some of that is those Chrome tabs, right? And the other thing about Chrome tabs is the teacher has to go and save those and then maybe log back in when she hits that site. Here you can open those web browsers of your Google Drive and the other things you want to use. Log into those at home while you're sitting in front of Hulu and streaming that, and build your content, save it to the cloud, come in, open at the panel, and you're ready to go. So it'll support multiple browsers. You can create that content from anywhere, from any device. It has over 200,000 interactive activities built in and full lesson plans. So if you're looking for something to launch into that gets you out of some of those old ecosystems, you need help with lesson creation, we already have it. Another big thing that Snowflake does very well is it splits screens. So when it splits the screen, it can split it from 2 to 4 independent zones. These zones are configurable in size and shape by you, and they truly are interactive. So if I had it in table mode, I could use those zones with kids around each one. But a lot of teachers use this in the upright mode just to kind of stage what they want to do and go in and out of full screen. And of course, we mentioned the table mode activities early on. So Snowflake really does just tons and tons here beyond anything else that we've seen. Some of the accessories that we make available is we include a wall mount with every panel. In fact, our panels, unlike I think anybody else in the market right now, when you get them out of the box, those uprights are already installed for you. So we save you 10 minutes or so per panel and installation. We have mobile stands, like adjustable stands, fixed height stands that can be used, all with a C-shaped base to increase the access to the panel and minimize the trip hazards that might be there. We do a whole group of accessories to help out with this: webcams, tripod kits, document cameras, huddle cams, mini keyboards. one of the things that's a little different is we developed a webcam 2-3 years ago, not expecting COVID to come around. So we sold through tens of thousands of those last year. But we also developed a mini tripod kit with it. And the mini tripod kit is not just a cool little tripod. It has a riser that can stand it up to 32 inches. It also comes with a 20-foot active powered USB cable. So now a teacher can take her laptop, and if she's doing hybrid learning, doing that online learning, stage that camera anywhere she wants to. It doesn't have to be up her nose like I am this morning. Some other things that we've gotten into in the past year is we're now manufacturing a line of direct view LED video walls. These start at 110 and go up to 220 inches. So these are for your bigger spaces. These are non-interactive, non-touch, but two things I want to point out here. One, this is an all-in-one unit that's significantly less expensive than what you may have seen out of other LED video walls that can sometimes hit $250,000. And 3 of the sizes, up to 165, can actually be on a mobile stand, so you can roll it around. These take a few hours to put together, to mount, to get going, but they all include the collage mirroring software. So if you wanted to screen share your content from your laptop or from a desktop straight to this, or from your phone, your tablet, very easy to do, all built in. We also have scoreboard software, and we do something that's very unique in this that we call Pixel Guard. So Pixel Guard is, in our terminology, like putting a layer of epoxy over the entire surface of the LEDs. So what's interesting is normally you do LEDs installs and you have like a 10, sometimes even as high as a 20% failure. Our last few LED video walls, we've had actual 0, no failures of any LEDs in the entire boards, and some of those have been 220-inch boards. So really nice big displays. We're bundling some scoreboard software with it now, so you'll see some information from us upcoming about that. That'll work with your existing Tektronix. You can run it from your existing devices. You can run it from the floor. You can put ads in there, so you can pay, get the thing paid back with some ad content and cover some of your programs. We also think outside the box on digital signage, so we came up with a rolling sandwich board, if you will, a 40-inch 1080p, 500 nit, waterproof, weatherproof design. This thing can run off grid, so I can recharge it and get up to 22 hours of runtime. We say 14 because just like your iPhone or your Android phone, after a couple of years of charging and uncharging, discharging, you're going to get some runtime that's down a bit. Very weather resistant, easy to roll and lock it in place, impact resistant. I've personally kicked the living daylights out of one at NCCE 3 years ago when a guy asked me about it. And it's like, how durable is it? So I just kind of was fed up with the question and kicked it really hard and hurt my foot more than anything. Very tough glass on there. You can upload
He
content
did actually
directly
drop one.
to it, play it offline. Yeah, well, we did drop one and it didn't really hurt it. But you can upload that content and go offline, or you can put your own wireless player in there. And we also are bringing out a wireless player in the next 30 days that will start shipping, that you could run that content over the network and update over the network if you wanted to, if you were in network, of course, which I know some of you like to do when you roll those things out to the car line. We also have a digital hand sanitizer. I think you guys understand how these work. It's digital signage with hand sanitizing. It's got a very large capacity tank on it. We sell refills, so you can use ours or use your own. You can use gels or liquids, quite easy to use. And we can demo any of this stuff that you're seeing here today. Just kind of want to give you a broad view, but we can demo any of this live online anytime you're ready to see it. We've recently released some digital signage software that we call Show. For those of you that are used to like the bright sign and some of the more popular ways of doing digital signage, I think you'll be impressed with what we're doing here. It's got a great GUI, it's less expensive, it's easier to use, it's current content, it's got a ton of preloaded templates. So if one of your concerns about digital signage is I'm just using slides and they're boring, or I'm having to create content, pay somebody externally or pay a person on staff, you'll find there are tons of content templates here that you could tap into and not have to build a lot of custom things yourselves. So that's kind of a quick overview of ClearTouch and our sister brand Clear Digital. And I know we're done a little early here, but I didn't want to hog all the time with just like products, because you guys can look at this online. What I want to do now is just open it up to any questions you have for any of the three of us about how things work and just anything you want to know.
So Jonathan, we have a question from David over at Ben Lapine about what the life cycle is of those panels.
That's a really great question. So life cycles on panels, this is a funny one, but I'll shoot straight. They're usually lies. And what I mean by that is they're made up by marketing professionals somewhere in the background to say, let's call it X amount of thousands of hours. So we've been doing this since 2012. And I can tell you that our actual run times of panels are well over 50,000 hours. But just to be on the safe side, one of the things that's true of all of our panels and has been since day one is, got one behind me, the quality of the image when you put panels side by side and stage them is you'll see the colors all look the same. The saturation rates, the opacity, everything in the color seems identical. And that's because we use LG backglass. Like if you go buy an LG television, same backglass that we're using, the backlighting there in the LED. So what LG does is they only test to 30,000 hours. So we say a minimum of 30,000 hours because that's as far as they test. But I'm easily seeing people beyond the 7-year range in their own classrooms. Just FYI, beyond 7 years or so with these, you could probably run them to 10, but what you're running into is the potential that you're going to have an advanced operating system in something like Windows that has its own built-in touch, and your panel just won't keep up with it in the 8th, 9th, and 10th year. So life cycles are, yeah, you can easily keep them running 7 to 10 years, but it's really going to be a question about, just like with your computers, when should you upgrade those?
Thank you. And we also have a question for ourselves about how are we training our staff to make sure that the new hardware is leveraged. And Jonathan can talk about a little bit of this too, so can Jason, but both Front Row and ClearTouch have been very supportive in having staff training available. So as we started this year in hybrid, our Ogden Middle School, we actually pulled in a bunch of modulars, mounted the ClearTouch panels, and then scheduled with ClearTouch to go ahead and have a trainer there via Zoom or in person, depending on how they wanted to socially distance themselves, but be able to train the teachers on how to use those panels that will be going into their classrooms. They're actually getting to get their hands on it right now. And so ClearTouch offers both online, on demand, and online scheduled live trainings, as well as maybe Jonathan likes us, but occasionally we've had success bringing their trainer out to our sites and training staff who were interested.
I would say from my experience, I have consulted with many schools across the West, from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah, Montana, Wyoming. And every time one of those school districts have decided to go with ClearTouch, ClearTouch has been there. On the back end, on the front end, you've got, Jonathan comes in and he does his thing, and then he's got his team on the back end, and he's got his team of trainers that come in that have been in the field as teachers. So they speak the teacher language, where, Jonathan, he's a sales guy, so he speaks sales. And it's just an all around absolute 100% amazing experience every single time I have dealt with ClearTouch.
Jonathan, you're muted.
He's not.
Yeah, I'm not bright. I work for a hardware manufacturer. I can't figure this technology out. One of the things we do that's a little different is, since I'm not a former teacher, we have a training team. We call them the implementation team, because they're not just here to do training. They're here to really work with you individually at your districts to ensure proper adoption and implementation of the hardware. There's an implementation phase of anything you bring in, and you guys know how to plug and play most of the hardware pieces, but we got some software pieces that sometimes you need help with on your network, or you need to know how to push out maybe those Snowflake accounts to get the teachers going. And then there's a training side, and that training side is all done by former educators that work for us. They're not contract labor, they're part of the company. And so they actually help work with folks like me, even in a pre-sales setting where we're talking to you for the first time or so, and you have those instructors or those principal, vice principals who want to say, where's the instructional value in this? Really helped me get my head around it. One of the things we did for the hybrid environment is in that Snowflake software, we launched a cloud-based version of that. As of yesterday, that cloud-based version has not only those 200,000 plus interactive lessons and online polling, but from the other side, one of the things we saw is that teachers really wanted to be able to do whiteboarding, and they were struggling to kind of put their camera in for the whiteboard, and for a while they weren't even going into their classrooms. So yesterday we just launched the first version of our Canvas Online, which is our Canvas whiteboard. So now you can whiteboard in the cloud, and you can even get the kids collaborating, so you can do your math questions on your laptop and push it out to them, and they can respond back if they have touch devices. If not, they can do some of those things via mouse and keyboard, but the world's moving toward touch. So just a lot of things built in there. And one of the things I wanted to mention is, I think it was Stein was asking a question about cameras and microphones, and David was answering that they're using webcams there in some of the spaces. So we do manufacture webcams, and one of the reasons we do that is not that you're locked into our webcam. You can use the Logitechs and the others of the world that you may prefer, even your PTZ cams. One of the reasons we do that and don't put it in the bezel is because a panel is only as good as its weakest element, and every time we've looked hard at things like cameras and microphones, we've never found one that does everything. So you get long, narrow spaces, then you get really wide, short, deep classrooms that are super wide, but they're just not maybe 30 feet deep or something, and it's hard to get that set up if you mount it inside the bezel. So we've gotten away from having anything in the bezel that would break down on you and make all those external. So now you can choose what you want. And so while we provide all of this software and all the support and all the training, we also like to be agnostic. So if you say, hey, I need to hang that panel on a wall and control it through a room controller like the Front Row, Easy Room System, Extron, Crestron, all the others that are out there, we're happy to do that, and happy to work with you in any environment you're in. It's more about really supporting where you are than it is about making you do it a certain way. So questions about training coming up here. So David, I think that one's for you. It looks like she's asking the training of the staff, and I think you pretty much addressed that. One thing I'll say too, to David's point, is with the first school with Ogden, we actually did both a Zoom remote training as well as an on-site training a few weeks after. So that kind of gave the teachers a first look, so they would know, what does this panel do, because it was new to them. And when we do Zoom trainings, we don't just do what we're doing here, sit here and really look cool and awesome. We actually have one of those former teachers in a studio. So we use Zoom for all of our studios, and we've got high-end cameras, microphones, lighting, everything's perfectly done in there. And we have an HDMI out on all the panels, so that's actually feeding back into our capture card. And we've got those studios set up almost like a television studio, where it's bright, engaging, and now it's a real two-way communication back and forth with the teachers to not only show them things, but to have them at their own panels and going through the software, or if they're stuck at home, walking through those software pieces on their laptop and taking it point by point. So our training is different in that we don't come in and just stand a trainer up and show you everything. We actually start dragging teachers out of the chairs and getting them at the panel and having them do these processes, because that's actually part of the change we're going for. I often joke that we're not actually selling panels, we're selling an elevated classroom experience. And that's only true when that training comes through and the teachers go through a little paradigm shift and realize, sure, I can project. And if I'm maybe doing a coding class, maybe that's exactly what I need to do, is just mirror my device and work on my code and let the kids mirror theirs. But if I'm in a highly interactive space, I can be up there, but I also can back up, project, have the kids up there, back and forth. And so it becomes very kinesthetic and very tactile in the learning environment.
All right. David Lawrence at Ben Lapine also asked, can you talk about the ROI going from projector and dot cam model to a panel display, plus the buy-in by end user and the amount of time for training. So I could talk about some of that. We actually have this conversation with a lot of our elementary principals right now, is that they look at that initial cost of a panel and they go, wow, that thing's expensive. And the problem is that they don't look at the whole cost. So we typically give it to them in chunks. So let's say $500 for the projector, $200 for the mounting kit for a ceiling mount. Then you got the electrical cost of running power to that ceiling mount projector. Then you got the interactive panel or the smart board for interaction. Then you've got the dot cam cost, and all these things. You add all those things up, and you are really close to the cost of one of these panels. And if you add in like an interactive projector that's ultra short throw with the screen needed to run it, and having your wall laser flat and all those sorts of things, it's right in there in the ballpark. So I think that this option there's a small premium depending on whether you want to go with a height adjustable stand or whether you would just want to stick it up on the wall. If you want to go with a fixed location, just like a projector, you're close. So probably within $1,000. And then on the user amount or user time and buy-in, every teacher is going to have a different threshold for the amount of buy-in that they want. And we make it available, and we service it, and we provide training through ClearTouch, and ClearTouch has been very supportive of that. So, if all they use is they use it as a TV and they display their stuff, that's something else. We support them for that too.
Yeah, that's a great point. So one of the things I'll bring up here is that almost all the time, and this has happened in Oregon City, there's almost a champion teacher. For Oregon City, it's a teacher who won a Teacher of the Year award 2014, 2015 timeframe. So she's pretty darn sharp and really put our panel through the paces. And what tends to happen is those teachers are champions. And so when you talk about how do I get buy-in from the end user, it really starts internally with teachers, with educators who have that vision. I saw somebody else mentioning that in the chat, that, it was hard unless you get kind of that principal level or the instructional level. And so I know each district's a little different, but that's exactly what we do. Is we're not trying to come in and just sell a device to put on a wall or a stand. We're really trying to have a discussion about what's your instructional models and how do we support those. And I can have the initial instructional model discussion all day long, but again, I bring in those former educators on my team to have that, really understand where are you guys right now and where do you want to be in a year versus 5 years, because 5 years from now, 7 years from now, your school is still going to be open. You might move to another district, but they're still going to be there, right? So we have to think about this long term, and that ROI question is a great one. I think one thing that you'll see with panels is we publish our failure rate. You can go to my website and see it, but we hover at less than 0.2% of actual hardware failures, which means your support tickets are going to bottom out. You're almost going to have nothing. If your panel goes down, quote unquote, beyond 90 days, it's probably something you did, not something we did in the build. They're just that reliable. So if you're having projector things, you have to calibrate, teachers can't get inputs to work, we eliminate all that. So just on the tech side, the fact that you can get rid of all those tech support tickets is a huge ROI. And then the messaging side, the screen sharing side, all that builds into the ROI because there's a fixed cost to go out and do all those things third party for sure. Not to mention sometimes support headaches when you're working with a third party vendor and trying to get them to work with your latest device or your latest updates.
One of the things that I do like is that collage software eliminates the need to have a Apple TV or an AirTame connected to the panel in addition to that, so it's built into the panel. It's one less device we have to support, troubleshoot, get connected to the network, those sorts of things. And Collage works pretty slick, even allowing touchback to a Mac, so I can actually open up folders and open up presentations and files on my laptop from the panel, which is pretty awesome.
Any other questions? It's good feedback. Appreciate everybody who's asked. If you have a question, there's a Q&A side there. You can also drop it in the chat. In case you haven't done that already, feel free. We're here to answer anything you have. Didn't put any polls in this one. Didn't want to bore you with a poll. It looks like there's nothing else. So I would say we probably can go ahead and end a bit early, unless David or Jason, you have anything else you want to bring up or talk through?
No. If anybody needs to talk, I'm happy to provide a district perspective on some of this too. So enjoy the conference, and we are here to help. And I'm sure Jonathan would love to sell a couple more panels.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a booth, guys, with tables. So thanks to those of you who already did come by. If you haven't come by and met us, please do. Love to chat with you. Appreciate you being here and your time and attention. Any questions you have, any concerns, let's talk through those. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.